Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today we are finally going over a list for Goku Black Wish. Okay, so yesterday I put out a video recommending you guys 5 rogue decks that I think would be either fun for you guys to try out or that I think are going to be decently positioned in the meta. I think Goku Black Wish covers both of those categories. I think the deck is really fun, but I've been saying it for a long time that this deck is very hard to build. In no way do I think this is a perfect list, but I've finally gotten it to a place where I'm pretty happy with it, and I want to show you guys because I think there are a lot of interesting concepts in this deck list that I haven't seen in other places. So I want to show it to you guys, and this list, again, is going to be in a state of flux. There could be many improvements made to this, and I do think this is a deck that can definitely shift with your play style. This can be built more blue-yellow, this can be built more mono-yellow, even maybe more blue base. I think there are many different ways to go about building this deck, but I'm going to share with you guys today what I've done for this. But anyways, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video, and if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways to do so down in the description. Today, guys, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards we talk about in today's video, or any trading card game cards for that matter, it really does help me out if you use my link to TCG Player down in the description. Anyways, let's get into this with our main deck. So we're playing a Wish leader, pretty simple. Your leader finds Dragon Balls on the backside. You generally want to always use the effect to find a Dragon Ball, since your leader is going to put your Dragon Balls back into your deck. That's very new for a Wish concept. Kind of weird, to be honest. I really don't know why they do that, but you are going to want to find your Dragon Balls that way. And then when you can, you'll be able to go for the triple attack. It can help you win games in certain scenarios. But anyways, as for the main deck, because obviously that's the main, weird way to configure the whole thing. So we have 3 Coercion and 4 Dragon Balls. So I've been going back and forth in this number a lot. 4 Coercion, 3 Dragon Ball. And I've mostly been switching back and forth between that. It really depends how heavily you go into the God engine and how many gods you play. In this list, I believe we're playing 24. And so I could definitely see playing 4 Coercion, but to be honest, a lot of the gods we actually want to keep in our hands. So while Coercion offers a very nice filter, we don't always want to be warping certain gods that are in our hand. But again, this could totally change to 4 if I want to, get more of that filter. It really just depends how a certain day of testing goes, if I'm being completely honest. Like, it really could just be 4. It's that weird to build this deck. But anyways, moving along, we have 4 copies of Zamasu self-supported. So this is the ideal turn 1 where you're able to find a copy of Coercion. You have a copy of Zamasu self-supported in your hand. You use Coercion, warp it, pay a yellow, add it back to your hand. That is a really ideal turn 1 play, because it's like you drew 2 cards for no cost. Well, I guess for a 1 energy cost essentially. And as far as turn 1 plays go, when you're not doing anything else, that is pretty good. 4 copies of SS Rose Goku Black Future on the line. I don't really need to go over this guy's effects, because if you've been seeing other content based on Goku Black Wish, this guy's the main playmaker. Like, this deck can tap a lot of your opponent's energy, which Bandai just recently banned, or limited to 1, the main card that taps opponent's energy, right? So this is a very mid-rangey control-oriented deck where this guy is going to be your main playmaker. He is one of the gods you certainly want in your warp, but the other way to get him into your warp besides Coercion is with Zamasu self-supported. When you combo both of them, you can use the Activate Battle on Zamasu to put them both to the warp and then draw a card. So that's another way you can keep up hand size for one of our pseudo arrival effects, which will be coming up. So we have Fuse Zamasu Divine Condemnation, 4 copies, and Fuse Zamasu Exterminating Force. So this is where the Aegis comes in. This is where, for me, the fun element comes in, because I was a huge fan of Aegis. This is basically our Violent Rush Bojack, except we do have to work a lot harder to get there, right? So basically, ideally, you want to combo Zamasu self-supported, you want to combo Goku Black, and then like pseudo arrival this Fuse Zamasu. You can do that as early as turn 2. Even though it doesn't have like barrier or deflect, the indestructible is still really good protection in, I would say, 90% of matchups. It's still really solid. So turn 2 is gonna be pretty safe for this. And then going into your turn 4, Exterminating Force, that's where you're going to get your Aegis established, or your Aegis that actually gives you a return by drawing a card, I should say. The Divine Condemnation does also have Aegis, but it's a little bit trickier to use, because if you use it too much on the 5-drop here, you're going to be losing a lot of cards very quickly, so you want to try to avoid that. But of course, if you're in a pinch, if you're up against an aggro deck, or you just need to make a vital play, you will be able to use the Aegis on this, and you do get to tap a card, so it's not like you get nothing for your Aegis, right? So that's pretty solid there. But yeah, this is really cool. Some matchups, it's tough to get to the 4 energy to get to this guy stably. It is definitely tough, but this is the whole kind of like concept of the deck, right? One thing I want to mention too is I was also trying a build with, I believe it's called Zamasu Mortal Loathing. That's the 1-drop, looks at top 5, adds a god or a unison, and then for 2 energy, if you have 3 or more energy, you can play the 5-drop from your hand, I believe by getting rid of a Goku Black on your board as well. And I wanted to try to make it work that way because even though Zamasu does warp himself and a Goku Black to get you a draw, it is kind of still a -1 because you're only replacing one of the cards you comboed with, not both, unless you're able to use the you know, pay a yellow effect to add it back to your hand. But you're not always gonna be able to do that, right? So I was trying that 1-drop Zamasu, but what I noticed was it was somewhat difficult to always have a Goku Black on board when I wanted to use that effect. And I was actually playing the blue-yellow Goku Black negate as another way to get a Goku Black in play for that effect to work, but it just ended up being way too convoluted. So I do think that this you know, pseudo rival strategy is probably the best way to go about it, in my opinion. Oh, and I should mention too, this list is 60 cards. It honestly feels like you have to play 60 cards with this. Again, there are just so many engines to pull from: the blue yellow engine, the mono yellow good stuff engine, the actual archetype, and the wish stuff. It really does seem like you have to play 60 cards. There are still cards in this deck that I haven't been able to fit that I want to play and try out. So like I said many times, it is just that hard to build. But anyways, moving along, we have 4 copies of Zamasu Eliminator. So not only is he a god, not only is he a check land, not only is it an incredible counterplay, it just like fits in this deck perfectly. It does everything we need it to do. It has all the tags we need it to have. It's just an incredibly good card in this type of deck. Then we have 4 copies of Rumshi Universe 10 Supporter. Okay, so a lot of the builds that I've been seeing aren't actually playing Rumshi, and I don't think it's like automatically necessary to play this card, right? But my thing is, a lot of the builds that I've seen don't necessarily have all the ways to fetch Dragon Balls, and they rely on seeing the Dragon Balls early, and in a 60 card deck that's going to be rather inconsistent. So I do like the fact that this helps us awaken a little bit quicker. And yes, our leader does have an alternate awaken condition of being at 3 or less life, but I want to be able to awaken when I want to, and if my opponent's not being aggressive with me, I can't wait till 3 life, right? Like, I want to be able to dump Dragon Balls in the drop. And I do think we have some other benefits out of playing this Unison. Like, the Empower effect is really cool because you get a board wipe if you want to play it either for 4 or if you want to play it later in the game over another copy of itself. I do like that a lot. The +0 we're not going to be using in this deck because we don't play any Goasus. That was kind of a weird one in my opinion. Like, I feel like they should have realized that there's so much to this archetype that it's going to be really hard to ever justify playing Gowasu for this +0. That was a slight oversight in my opinion, but I'm getting a little bit too nitpicky. But anyways, all right, so this is the big payoff. This is the big reason, or the other big reason that I want to be playing Rumshi is because we can play Return of the Dragon Fist. Return of the Dragon Fist is the most broken yellow boss monster that is impossible to play because 99% of yellow decks cannot play Unisons well. If you look at Icarus of the past, most Mecha Frieza builds of the past, if you look at even current Trunks builds, they're not able to play Unisons well because the Unisons that they could play either aren't tanky enough to live, they're too late in the game, or they just don't serve a worthwhile purpose. Like, the main yellow Unison you play in most yellow decks is 3-drop Trunks, and that's not for it to stick around. That's for it to either apply pressure or act as removal. So you're not establishing that as a foundation where Return of the Dragon Fist could thrive. This type of deck, though, with Rumshi being a +2, it can survive pretty well, especially if you go first. And then Return of the Dragon Fist is a good win condition later on in the game. That honestly, when you're on 4 or 5 energy and it only costs you 3, that's very, very cheap. And then if you need to defend another turn, you have Aegis to hopefully back that up, right? Like, that's going to be your ideal situation you're going to be in. Then we have 1 copy of Bergamo, just some yellow good stuff here. 1 copy of Swift Retaliation Cooler. In a 60 card build, I could definitely see playing 2 Cooler, but again, I'm struggling to fit cards that I want to fit. So we're playing the 1 for now. Hopefully you will find it with all the filter. And again, sometimes I want to filter more and I want to bump up Coercion to 4. So that may be a thing I have to do as well. And then 1 copy of Poutine, kind of rounding out our yellow good stuff here. And we will get through the rest of the deck, guys. But real quick, we do have a word from today's video's sponsor. Yo, Dragon Ballers, real quick, I need to let you guys know about 2 events that are coming up soon, being hosted by PPG. All the info will be down in the description, but we have the Dragon Ball Super Card Game Fest from March 26th to the 27th. This is going to be the first ever event where they are trying out the sideboarded best of 1 format. Besides that, it'll just be a celebration of the Dragon Ball Super Card Game, so you're not going to want to miss it. The other one is for organized play through the Pro Play Tour. We have the regional qualifier April 2nd in Kentucky. Shouts to the Midwest, so you're definitely not going to want to miss that. Shout out to PPG because they run awesome tournaments, but also besides that, this is a thing I've been concerned about in the past where these tournaments just don't get enough advertisement. So shout out to PPG for doing more and putting in more work to advertise these events. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video. All right, guys, shout out to PPG. Let's get back into the deck profile. So next up, we have 4 copies of Robotic Riposte and 3 copies of Steadfast Assistance. So these cards are just absolutely perfect in this deck because our main yellow extra card's Coercion. We can always find it when we need it. It is a little bit annoying when it gets sent back into the deck, but of course we can always find another copy, and we do run other yellow extra cards that we will be getting into right now. So 1 copy of Power of a Super Saiyan is all we can play, unfortunately, but with Aegis and Bergamo, like, it is 2 1-ofs in a 60 card deck, but I mean, when you pull that off, it is absolutely busted. But of course we have other ways to proc Bergamo and whatnot. And again, like I mentioned before, the other cool thing is Bergamo is not our only way to be tapping our opponent's cards, specifically their energy. So that is a really, really big upside to playing a deck like this. 2 copies of Black Kamehameha. With a deck that has Aegis, this card just feels so broken. Like, when you don't actually feel the cost of 1 that it is, like in a mono yellow deck, you feel that this costs 1, right? Like, it actually feels costly. But in a deck that plays blue and Aegis, this card just feels even more broken than Power of a Super Saiyan, to be honest. I low-key wish it actually allowed you to interact with Unisons, because that was one of the big things that Power allowed you to do. Like, when you're staring down a Machikabura Unison or like a Blue Boo Unison, it is pretty tough. But I mean, you know, again, this card was definitely super broken, needed to go to 1. But moving along, we have 2 copies of Final Flash. Again, with Aegis, it's just perfect. It's just so worth playing. 4 copies of Bean. Again, playing blue, playing yellow, playing Aegis. We want to be able to manipulate our energy, so this just seems like pretty much a no-brainer. 4 copies of Zamasu Super Combo. This is another one that I'm going back and forth on a lot. I kind of want to play 4 Zamasu. I kind of want to play 4 Krillin. I kind of want to play a split. There is a significant fear of, you know, not being able to filter during our opponent's turn with super combos and getting stuck with some cloggy cards in our hand. But between Aegis filtering and all the excess energy we should have access to in theory, plus Senzu Bean, our deck's actually very, very defensive. We have 7 counterplays that act as Crusher Balls. We have all these extra cards to interrupt our opponent. We have 4 Riposte. So I think 4 Zamasu is okay. It is another God name, although you really don't want to be warping it with Coercion unless you absolutely have to. It is another Aegis pitch, which, again, not super ideal, but it does actually help us put Divine Condemnation in play if we're in a pinch. So that's pretty good there as well, but it actually is relevant for the last card in the profile, which we'll get to in just a moment. But finishing up, 1 Supreme Kai of Time SCR. Now, it's been a while since I've included this SCR in a deck list, and there's a very specific reason why I'm including it in the Goku Black Wish deck, and that's because of Aegis. So this is a activate battle type SCR, unlike Pan, and Pan I'm sure will be absolutely fine in this. I know a lot of people are also playing the Wicked Sand, which is also good, and the reason Wicked Sands is also good is similar to why I find Supreme Kai of Time to be good, is because we want to be able to do it during battle. That Aegis gives us that excess energy, which is great, but I do think that I want to have Unison control in this deck. I do think that that Supreme Kai of Time brings a lot to this deck, especially when you're battling it out against another mid-range or control deck that is relying on their Unison. Being able to clear that is very, very important. Also has the upside of just, you know, being good in the mirror, stopping your opponent's leader from attacking, being good against Machikabura, like all these random decks that put a lot of pressure on with their leader. That is very, very nice. And with Power of Super Saiyan to 1, this is another form of Unison interaction, and full out Unison removal is, you know, pretty solid. So finishing up the list, we do have 1 copy of Fighting Against Fates just for our Overwhelm. We could do some weird cheeky stuff like Overwhelm before we even start putting our Dragon Balls back into our drop area once we awaken, because again, all our Dragon Balls get taken out of the drop and go back into the deck. So we can Overwhelm that way. We can Overwhelm later after we use our triple attack effect. And with being like dual and triple attackers, just synergize very, very well, because it's basically a permanent combo for that turn, which is a really, really good synergy once again. And I think for removal, we're doing pretty okay. Like, this could obviously be Secret Enemy Mass Sand, but we have Kai of Time for the board wipe. We have Dragon Fist for removal. We have Future on the Line for removal. So I think we're doing pretty okay with removal. Probably don't need Secret Enemy Mass Sand, but could be a good card to side deck or even main deck if you really want to. And the final card that I haven't seen in a single Goku Black list online is SS2 Kefla Lightning Speed. So again, like, only 2 copies. It feels weird because you want to pitch a copy of itself to get its full effect, but we're already at 60 cards. This is a card that I want to try out more. This is a card that I want to experiment with, because when you're getting all this excess energy via Aegis, Senzu Bean, all this good stuff, this is just the most broken blue-yellow arrival. So we want to be able to abuse this, you know, when we can, right? So that's kind of the whole concept of the deck. You can see I've built it very, very heavily around the concept of Aegis, and if you can't get to Aegis in a certain matchup, it's going to be tough, but then you want to try to lean into your Robotic Riposte early. You want to try to lean into your Steadfast and your Zamasu Eliminators early to try and stall and defend. And once you can get your Exterminating Force on board, hopefully your opponent can't really answer it, and then you're kind of able to stabilize from there. That's kind of the goal of the deck. Again, I find this deck very, very fun. I think it's a pretty different build than what you guys may have seen online, but of course, let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you like the build? Do you think it's trash? Let me know. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.